You're weak, you're pathetic, there's something wrong with you. What on earth are you going to do? When are you going to take action? Imagine hanging around with somebody that spoke to you in that way all day, every day. Sadly, a lot of people do. People who are stuck in a cycle of drinking and beating themselves up about how much and how often they drink. The unfortunate thing is that when you beat yourself up all the time, you just create more stress and anxiety. So it's no surprise that by the end of the day, all you want to do is have a drink to switch off the inner critic that won't shut up. It's not an effective strategy. It may work in the short term, but long term, it just keeps you stuck. When I was stuck in the cycle of drinking, I was pretty brutal to myself. I would wake up every morning beating myself up about the night before, but by the end of the day, I was so exhausted that the only thing that I could think of doing was picking up a drink. But what if this strategy is actually part of the problem? And what if you don't actually have a drinking problem? You just have a strategy problem. It's a strategy that's worked for a long time, but now it's stopped working. In this video, I'm going to share a few things which are going to completely change how you see alcohol and, most importantly, how you see yourself. We're going to explore the key pieces that most people never learn, the parts that explain why you drink, why it feels hard to stop, and why none of it has anything to do with a personal weakness or lack of willpower. By the end of this video, you will understand at a much deeper level your nervous system in a way that dissolves all this shame and guilt and fear and confusion around drinking. You'll see the pattern clearly, and you'll see yourself with a lot more compassion and understanding than before. And make sure that you watch right till the end, because at the end of this video, I'm going to share a reframe that helps people feel a lot calmer, more confident. And of course, it's a way to feel something more when you feel nothing. Alcohol becomes an outsourced antidote to regulating your system. It's very quick, it's predictable, and it's a very easy way to change how you feel. The strategy works to relax, relieve, and reward stress, and we need all of those things. So when we remove alcohol, we're not removing the need that it was meeting, but what we're trying to do is simply upgrade our strategy, because the strategy stops working. Here's the important part that people often don't know or understand. Alcohol works until your brain adapts. Over time, dopamine levels drop, GABA gets depleted, glutamate rebounds, and serotonin becomes unstable. It all sounds very technical, but at the end of the day, over time, you feel worse and worse. This is why you can start to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning with anxiety, why anxiety gets worse over time, why one glass becomes 2, then 3, then 4. Your nervous system is basically just trying to find a normality, a sense of balance, and alcohol keeps knocking it off center. But when your nervous system is balanced, when you feel calm and in control, you don't feel the need to drink because you feel like you're okay in the moment. You don't crave any form of escape. The problem is that when we're stressed or anxious or overwhelmed, the brain goes into what's called a hyper-aroused state or an activated state. And we feel anxious, we feel a sense of urgency, we feel overwhelmed. And on the flip side, if we've been running on empty for a while, the opposite happens and we get deactivated. This is known as hypoarousal, which is when you feel flat, down, depressed and shut down and heavy. And alcohol becomes the quickest strategy that we know. It's the fastest shortcut to feel normal, even if it's just for a short period of time. This is because your system is either too activated or depleted, and when we don't take care of ourselves on an ongoing basis, the nervous system gets completely out of whack. It's out of balance. And so we easily fall back into those stress responses and we reach for the thing that gives us the fastest relief. As I mentioned before, in my own journey, I was living in a constant state of hyperarousal. I didn't realize it at the time, but I felt stressed most of the time, and I had this kind of low-level anxiety. What I didn't realize was that the alcohol was making it so much worse. In actual fact, I was drinking to relieve the effect of the alcohol. So I realized that I wasn't drinking because I loved alcohol. I was simply drinking to try and get my nervous system to feel a sense of balance. I was drinking because I was activated all the time. I was under pressure to perform. Part of me wanted to be perfect, so there was that pressure on myself too. And it all added up to me constantly being in a slightly and sometimes very hyper-aroused state. So it's no wonder that by the end of the day, I felt I needed something to calm my nervous system. So the important thing to know here is that we're not drinking because we love drinking. We're drinking because we feel dysregulated. And when we feel dysregulated, we feel uncomfortable. And alcohol is the fastest route that we know to feel any sense of calm. This is the answer to the question, why do I do it when I know better? You can know better intellectually, but your body tells you different. This is why you can find yourself desperately trying not to drink, but finding that the craving in the pull is just too strong. What's also really interesting is that the process starts before you even pick up a drink. When you're activated, stressed, feeling under pressure, the system, because it's used to it, is saying, where's the drink? Where's the alcohol? That's what I need. And so that is what causes the craving. It's the desire, the anticipation of some form of relief. So the strategy that we've been using to make ourselves feel better has stopped working. And it generally happens to most people that have been drinking from their teens up to around their mid-40s and upwards. The strategy stops working because the alcohol tolerance is higher, they need more to get the same result, and it's starting to have an impact on their behaviors long term. So if we think back to where we started, this is this inner battle, we're beating ourselves up, we're telling ourselves we shouldn't drink, but that inner conflict creates tension. And when we are tense, we are stressed, and when we're stressed, we want to drink. So it doesn't work. What we need to focus on is not fighting alcohol, because when we try and fight it, we just cause more resistance. We also want to be really mindful of how we're talking to ourselves. If you're beating yourself up on a regular basis, which is really common and understandable, we've got to take a different approach. The approach that is much more effective long term is to look at the behaviors and understand it. As I've said, it's a strategy, an effective strategy. That's all that's been going on here. And now as you become more aware, you start to realize that strategies can change. Now, the interesting thing is that anyone that's run a business will understand that if a strategy stops working, then it's time to have a look at it and change it. Or if a system needs updating, you've got to do the software update. It's exactly the same with our brains and with our habits. The first step in that strategy is to create as little tension and anxiety as possible. If you tell yourself, I'm never drinking again, then that immediately causes stress and anxiety and resistance. So we just want to take it day by day. Set yourself a goal, be it a day, a week, a month, but don't have the narrative of this is it, I'm never drinking again, because it just causes too much resistance. The next strategy that we can use, which is one that people say all the time and people get very resistant because it sounds very basic, is simply to use your breath. Now, I totally get it. When you're stressed and someone says, just breathe, you want to punch them in the face. But try something different. That's what this is all about. So taking long, deep breaths, what that does, very simply, is it tells your nervous system that you're safe. So as you slow your breathing down, you will start to feel calmer. It's the cheapest, simplest tool in the toolkit. So we want to be very mindful of how we're breathing. We can then add in some extra pieces that help regulate the nervous system, things like just going outside and looking around, having a warm shower, a long bath, a cold bath. So we want to breathe, we want to get outside, we want to just experiment with different higher quality strategies to get the same result. That is, we want to feel relief, we want to feel relaxed, and we may want to give ourselves some kind of reward at the end of a long day. We can achieve all of those objectives without alcohol, but it does take time, repetition, and practice. Step 4, replace the actual drinking ritual. Make sure that you have an alcohol-free alternative that you really look forward to, so that we're giving our body a sense of anticipation and excitement about getting a reward. And when you're having your replacement drink, make sure that you make it calming. Sit in your favorite chair, put it in your favorite glass, whatever you need to do to replicate the experience, but just without alcohol. Now, this can be really effective, and it was for me for the first year. I would have an alcohol-free wine, and I would replace the exact ritual that I used to do when I was drinking. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, and I do always give people a bit of a warning. If you feel that that's a trigger for you, then stay away from alcohol-free alternatives. But there certainly can be extremely helpful for many people. The next thing that we need to do, that we must do, is reward ourselves for the new behavior. What gets rewarded gets repeated. When our systems get a reward, we get a message to say, I need to do that again because it felt really good. So we want to really reward ourselves for any behavior that involves using a higher quality strategy that doesn't involve alcohol. So reward yourself intentionally every time that you don't drink. So what if you don't actually have a drinking problem? You just have a strategy problem. It makes it a lot more palatable and manageable to see it in this way. And it's true. We just need to find higher quality strategies that give us a very similar result to the one that we got from drinking. And of course, it is going to take a bit of time to transition. But if you tell yourself, I'm upgrading, I'm giving myself alternative strategies, I'm improving my quality of life by upgrading my strategies, that's way more motivating than saying to yourself, I've got to stop drinking, which really isn't that motivating or exciting. Furthermore, it will give that inner critic that's been beating you up for so long something else to chew on. It's going to start putting its mind to other strategies, better ways, improving oneself. And the dialogue that you're starting to have inside moves from you're weak, you're pathetic, there's something wrong with you, to I am experimenting and exploring with higher quality strategies so that I can remove alcohol and live my life feeling completely relaxed, relieved, and rewarded without having to consume alcohol. If you've enjoyed this video, please put a like down below, because it really helps me get these videos out to other people. You can subscribe, which means that you'll get notified every time I drop a new video. And there's a link below to some free resources that will help you on your journey. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.